Have you ever stopped to think about the fans behind a band? What is it about the music that keeps fans coming back for more? Or is there more? My name is Renae Lipsmeyer, and I am the host of this podcast, The Space Between Podcast, the podcast where we talk about the fans of the Dave Matthews Band. Each week, a fellow DMB fan joins the show to discuss their journey with the band. Welcome to the Space Between Podcast. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Space Between Podcast, the podcast where we talk about the fans of a band that has been putting out music for over 30 years. So if you have never heard of this band, the Dave Matthews Band, it's a band that started in 1991 in a small little town, Charlottesville, Virginia. And so through 91 all the way to 2024, this band has hardly taken any time off in over 30 years, which just blows my mind. Every time I say it, I'm like, how does someone do this for this long? But they have been able to. And so because of that, they have picked up thousands of fans all over the globe and of every age. And so every episode, I bring a fan of the Dave Matthews Band on the show to talk about their journey with this band who means so much to us, the Dave Matthews Band. So of course, this episode is like every episode. I have a fan on. And so thank you so much, first of all, for being on and being willing to share your journey with everyone. So tell us who you are, where you are, and when was the very first time that you heard of the Dave Matthews Band?
Hi, I'm Jake O'Brien. I'm in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I'm 39 years old, and the first time I heard of them was actually November 19th, 1998, and I only remember that day because it was my 14th birthday.
Hell yeah, 14. Wow, 14 years old. Isn't that just incredible to say? If you think back, you're like, damn. I mean, it has covered you from teenagehood through adulthood. And that's wild to think of one band that's been able to span that long. They've seen technology change. You've seen technology change. So how in the world how did you hear them?
Absolutely. My best friend in 8th grade actually was going to the concert that night. And that day during school, I didn't have plans to go. And I just remember being jealous. I didn't know much about them at all, but he played a couple songs, and I was like, man, I dig that stuff. Yeah. And I had never been to a live music show, and it just so happens that I got home from school, and my parents said that my aunt and uncle had an extra ticket, and I was shocked. I don't think my parents were very excited to let me go. I grew up an extremely Catholic family, so the environment, and I was only 14, so they allowed me to go, and it was just the start of that journey.
What were your thoughts? I mean, and what had you heard prior to that? Can you think of any songs that you knew kind of before going into the show?
Really, only Crash.
Okay.
Nothing beyond Crash. So
right.
I really didn't know any of it, but I loved the eclectic mix of several different instruments. The fact that they just jammed out. It was my first live show. So it changed me from that moment on. I was in a way addicted to just live music in general and Dave and the guys.
Yeah. So what were you listening to before this happened, before this was introduced into your life? What kind of music were you listening to at 14?
That's a really good question.
I know it's hard to remember because I thought about this the other day. I was like, what was I listening to? That was a long time ago.
Nothing similar. I would say I was listening to like R&B and rap.
Hell yeah.
And that was before the time of my other addiction, which is Taylor Swift. But R&B and hip-hop.
I just had a mini stroke. I was just like, oh my God, we are going to talk about Taylor Swift in this episode then.
Yeah, that's she's my number two.
Me too.
But so it's I kind of left the R&B and hip hop in the back seat. and
Yeah.
got on the Dave
I
Matthews
mean, what a
bandwagon.
shift, though. But, like, again, I was trying to remember what it was I was listening to in the 90s because I always kind of default to saying that I listened to 90s country because for me, like, remembering back, I grew up in small town Texas, so that was just kind of what was around me. But thinking back to country music in the 90s, it sounded completely different than it does now. And I still dig like some 90s country music. But then I was like, that's not all I was listening to because I held on to that in no way. And so I kind of kept reviewing, like, what was it about the 90s? And that's exactly what it was. I mean, Keith Sweat, so many amazing artists were part of the 90s and helped shape who I was and moving forward. I mean, I also grew up in a very religious household. And so I remember, we had like, was it BMG and Columbia House that would like mail you CDs if you like
Yes,
promised or whatever to
yes,
pay
yeah,
them. Oh shit. I got them a
right.
couple of times and that was stupid. But the CDs that I was ordering was not the Dave Matthews Band. I didn't meet them until later, but, I remember I ordered a Snoop Dogg CD because like he was in the hype back then. Like it was good. It was,
Yeah, for
it
sure.
was what everybody was kind of talking about. And so I remember getting it home and playing it in my room. And my parents walked in right away and was like, no. And I mean, they kind of tried to sit down and be like, this is why we don't listen to that. And I'll never forget. That's like one conversation that I had with my
Right.
parents that I'll never forget because I was like, dude, like my music should be my choice. But, well, and at that age, it's really not necessarily your choice at that time. But yeah, the 90s had so much good music. And of course, then here comes the Dave
Yeah.
Matthews Band. And they sounded completely different than anyone else that was out there because, they had so many different instruments and so many different sounds. And the best quote I've heard just recently is that they are not your traditional rock band, right? Like they are kind of a jazz fusion band where they are able to kind of mix
Right.
in a bunch of things. So I agree with you. Like it was something that was so far out, and I think maybe that was the hook for me, was like, oh shit, what is happening on stage here? And so let's go back to like the first time you're on stage and you're seeing them with your eyes. Like obviously the Dave Matthews Band puts on such a visual performance. They're fun to watch in general. Each person that stands up there, and even Carter, being behind the drums, he like, he has that smile on his face. He's blowing that gum all the time. He's just so contagious.
Right.
So do you remember some moments that may have stuck out to you?
Well, the first show, that it was back when they had an the opening band, and I
Oh
remember it
yeah.
was Bella Fleck and the Flecktones.
Oh,
And so throughout the show, they had Bella actually guest on a couple songs, and just um, adding him to the music in the show, and just jamming out. Like I just remember just you know they may not have practiced that at all, and just going and ad libbing it,
yeah.
and just the interactions between all of them. I had never seen like six or seven people on stage at once playing several different instruments. I mean, it's incredible, and to this day, I'm still like amazed by it.
Exactly.
It's fantastic.
If nothing else, we talked about this before I hit record. If nothing else, it's like we've fallen in love with them more with time, right? Because there's just
Oh,
such an
absolutely.
appreciation for what they're doing and that they're able to still continue to do that. So you leave your first show and, like you said, you'd gone with some, who did you go with exactly? Was it your aunt? No, who did you say it was?
Yeah, I went with my mom's sister and her husband, so aunt and
Okay.
uncle,
Okay.
and today they're the two coolest people in the world for taking 14-year-old me
Yes.
to a show like that.
Many many thanks if they end up listening to this. Thank you for introducing him to
Yes,
the Dave
yep,
Matthews
for
Band.
sure.
So what do you go home and tell your parents? Because of course, if they were kind of a little bit like, I don't know if I want you to go, do you talk to them about it? Do you tell them like my mind is blown, like, or do you just kind of skip over it and go, yeah, it was good,
I'm sure I told them, it was great, and um, I think I might have mentioned that had a contact high, um, but I don't exactly remember I definitely told them I loved it. And,
Yeah.
now I'm turned on by the live music.
Yeah.
But I don't remember
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
exactly what I
yeah,
said.
yeah. So what are the next steps? So you've seen them once, and because of the time that you did see them, really before you knew a lot of their music, I'm sure that kind of fueled the fire to like find more recordings, right? And so in the late '90s, that was a little harder than it is now. You were either looking for CDs, which in the late '90s there wasn't as many as there is now as far as live concerts and things like that. So how did you go about finding music, and what did you listen to next?
Um, I believe I um, found a CD is really how I found it to listen to it more, um, and just got on the bandwagon and just didn't stop from there. Like just any CD that I could find, any recording, the one or two songs that the radio would play, and it just took off from there.
Yeah.
Um, Anytime I could go see them, sign me up.
Yeah, absolutely. So when was the next time you saw him? Was there some time between that, or and where did you live at the time?
I've grown up actually where I currently live,
Okay.
in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I've moved around to several different states, but I've returned to where I saw him the first time. But
Yeah. Yeah.
I think the second time uh, was my home venue now, which is outdoors because they summer tour all the time. So
Yeah.
a lot of different outdoor venues, as you know. So
Yeah.
um, and my um, home venue is Pine Knob in
Yeah.
Frankston,
Yeah.
which is passed over by many people because it's a Tuesday or Wednesday night.
Mhm.
But it's an amazing venue, and so I started going there yearly, every summer. Haven't missed it in a long time. But
Yeah, I've heard about Pine Knob for sure, and I hear the people that go there. First of all, there's never a bad show, but those Tuesdays, Wednesday shows are harder to get to because, of course, most of us are adults now. We have those jobs. We can't use
yeah,
all of our PTO, for those weekday shows. But
right.
I've never heard a bad thing about a Pine Knob show. I've only ever heard positive things like, wow, we got to shop, never miss a Tuesday show. Those are the things that we hear. And so that's a great home venue for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
So what do the next step looks like for you? Like how do you move forward?
From where I am now, or
Just from
after
after
I
you seeing that first show. Yeah, like you get more into their music, and then what takes you to your second show?
just wanting to see them again and a live show in general. I mean,
Yeah.
I loved going to see them live, but then it was also just like I want to go to another concert,
Yes.
and so I just started going to see them at any opportunity. I mean, I looked up, in drivable radius where I could see them, like Deer Creek. I'm pretty close to Deer Creek. I'm close to any shows in Chicago or around that area.
Yeah.
And I just I kind of went nuts. Like, just take me to any show I can get to,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I
And
totally get that.
it's been an awesome ride.
Yeah, and you're so lucky to live in an area where they're going to come every year, and if you're close to Deer Creek, which if someone's listening to this and you're like, "What the hell is Deer Creek?" Well, I'm glad that you ask. Deer Creek, it's not even called that anymore, right? That's just what Dave Matthews Band fans, I'm sure there's other bands that
Right.
may call it that, but that was a name that it had many years ago. I don't know when they changed it to Ruoff whatever center that it is
Yeah.
what that it technically is now. But that is now, and I don't know if it always has been, a 2-night venue. So you go down, they have a Friday night show, Saturday night show, and that's one of when you talk to other fans that have traveled a lot to see the band, and you think, okay, well, where do I need to see the band? Like, what's the highlights? Deer Creek is always one of those. So if you're listening to this and you're like, I would love to start visiting these places around the United States, definitely look into Deer Creek. It is located in a small city just right outside of Indianapolis. And so, you can fly into Indianapolis, and then I would say, what do you think, like 45-minute drive or something like that from the inner city to, what is the name of the
Yes,
city? What is the name of the city?
Noblesville. It's in
Noblesville. That's
Noblesville.
right. That's right. That's right. I mean, that's a great one.
Yeah.
So if you do you tend to go to that as much, like every year, as often as you can?
No, that's one I don't go to as often. Um, I love it, and it's definitely somebody that hasn't been there. You got to get there. But
Yeah.
um, lately, my wife and I have done the Gorge 4 years
Wow.
in a row.
Yeah.
Um, and I wanted, like, 5 years ago, I wanted to make it there once,
Yeah.
and I was so happy to go once, and then I was like, well, we got to go back. Like, we
Right.
can't not go.
That's
And
usually what I
so we
hear.
keep going back.
So
And
you've
at
been four
times I just
times?
have had to, we've,
Four times?
yeah, we've been 4 times.
Wow.
Yeah. So we've had to scratch some venues off, and
Oh yeah.
Deer Creek has gotten the scratch off
Yeah. Well, I mean, the
a
gorge,
couple times.
and if you're listening to this and you're like, okay, you're using a lot of lingo that I don't even know what this means. So the gorge, because not everybody knows, and that's okay. That's what we're going to talk about. We're going to break that down for
True.
someone that is a new fan, and you're like, I just want to know how to do this. So the gorge is a venue that is in Washington State. It is 2 hours east-ish, northeast-ish of Seattle. So it is kind of a trek to get there. You definitely are in the middle of nowhere, I would say. So you have to it is one of those trips that you kind of have to plan because it's going to require you to have a place to stay. There's a lot of camping that goes on there. There is RVs that you can either of course, bring your own or have it delivered and you can stay in an RV. And then, of course, there's hotels that are near-ish and stuff. But it's a 3-day show. It's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and it's always done on the same weekend, which of course is Labor Day weekend, which fans have titled it Labor Day weekend. But it is such a great venue. A lot of people call it the Mecca of the Dave Matthews Band world. Of course, there are other bands that perform there regular, so on the regular. So it's a venue that a lot of people go. But Dave Matthews always has it reserved for that Labor Day weekend. And so the fact that you've been 4 times just proves to everyone that's listening that you have a special place in your heart for that weekend. So what is it about the Gorge that you guys love so much?
Uh, the scenery. I mean, obviously the band. Seeing the band there
Yes.
is a bucket list item. Um, it's the scenery. It is so incredible how it's in the middle of nowhere, and all of a sudden you're just in this venue that Dave and the boys play amazing shows back to back to back. It's the camping, it's the winery that's very close by that puts on fantastic live music shows during the day. And then lastly, it's the people. Like, I have met so many amazing people that have become best friends
Yeah.
that I never thought, like, without the band, I don't believe I would have met. I mean,
Right.
um, just amazing people.
Yeah,
It's more than just the band at that point. It's
it is.
um, just best friends that'll be lifelong friends.
Yeah. So when did it kind of evolve from just kind of chasing the music to being introduced into the community? Because, you said you have met so many people that have turned into lifelong friends. And I think that's a real common story when when we're obviously talking about the fans of the Dave Matthews Band. But when did it make that turn for you? When did you really kind of get involved when it came to other fans?
Yeah, so there was a period of time where I would go to shows a lot of the time with my significant other at the time of each concert. So if I was dating somebody, I would go with that person for several shows, however long we were dating, and
Right.
then um, it would be a new person.
Yeah.
But I didn't get really heavily involved with the community. I don't think until probably meeting my wife, and we've known each other for about 10 years. where I kind of just got outside my comfort zone, I would say,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
as I'm a little bit more introverted.
Yeah.
Um, kind of just saying, hey, I want to meet more people that love the same band as much as I do,
Yeah.
and hang out and tailgate or camp or so it was really when I met my wife and we started going to shows, and it became more than just going to the show and going home.
Right, right. So, is your wife, I have to ask this question, is your wife a big fan? Is she of equal, I guess, there's no level of fanhood. I say that often, but,
Right.
does she love the Dave Matthews Band?
Uh, so when we met, she had never seen them, heard maybe the radio hits.
Sure.
So she was not a fan when
Yeah.
we met, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
So I slowly got her into them. Uh, would I say she loves them? I I wouldn't say love, but she enjoys the shows. Um, she goes she goes to the show most of the shows with me now.
Yeah.
We've met friends that she's friends with. I mean, it's a community, like you said.
Yeah.
Um, I joke that she used to say that we would only go to one show a year, and I laughed at that. I said that's not happening, or maybe we shouldn't get married. I like only one show is not happening, and so um, we're usually like between 7 and 9 shows
Holy shit. That's
a
awesome.
summer, and we keep telling ourselves that we need to calm down a little bit.
Do you? Do you need to?
I I don't know.
How much time do we have
Something
left, right? Like here, there's
it's
always
over
that.
right. For
There's
sure.
always that side of the story is like, okay, we can talk about that, but also I need for you to know that like this could be over at any minute, right? So it
Yeah.
sounds to me like we should be cramming it in, right? Like how many
Yeah.
more can we get?
I am totally agree. I am in agreement.
My husband
think it's
doesn't believe in that philosophy though.
Yeah,
No, he's like,
we're still there though. We're still there. I think this year is at 8. So we've made we've not calmed down.
nope, not yet. It's not the time. Maybe another year. Maybe next year or the year after. Year after. We'll see, right?
Yeah, we'll see. We'll keep going.
Yeah. So, one thing that I always hear is, yeah, it's not all about the music. That is what we fell in love with. That was the hook for sure that got us in. And that is the most beautiful part. But then, after you've gone to enough shows, you tend to pick up on a few things. Number one, if you're looking around you, you're going to see a lot of the same people at every single show. I mean, we have fans, or the Dave Matthews. I'm speaking for the band. I am
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
But the Dave Matthews Band has such a following. People that now, because of how old this band and because we have aged with the band, we have to remember that a lot of people are near retirement, have already retired, and that's beautiful. But then also after 2020, we had the ability to do a lot of work remotely. So that's kind of changed the way that people, how they do their lives. We can travel all the time, but still be employed. And that's wonderful. So because of all those things, a lot of people do hit up as many shows. The kids are grown. We're close to retirement. We have a little more disposable income because we're 60. And so, you may see a lot of the same people. You will see a lot of the same people show after show after show. And because of that, you just tend to meet people. But then there's also all of the fan things that come along with the music. There's often night zero parties, which is typically the night before a show. But even at places like the Gorge, when there's so much time at the Gorge where there is no music playing, right? And so the events that are sponsored by the fans that are put on, whether it is you can probably name those events because I've only been once, but it just seemed like there were things going on all the time, and because of that, again, you just meet more people. And so can you name any of those events? I know that there's some yearly things that happen at the Gorge that people just kind of flee to. Like there's some kind of Olympics or something, like a beer something.
The beer Olympics.
Yeah.
Yeah, the beer Olympics.
Yes.
Yeah, and I haven't participated in those. I'm not exactly sure why, but I've seen them and they're great. Like it's just more community building and more. They have a potluck.
Yes.
It's amazing, and
it's wild.
Truly just fantastic.
It's wild, just the level of organization that is behind, because, me going last year, I just, I didn't know what I was going to see. I didn't know what it was going to be like. And one thing that I took away from all of it is that there is so many organized events that are happening outside of the music. Like you said, the potluck, which is such a great thing, especially the timing of when they do it, because, food is one of those things that is a bit of a challenge, I would say. You have to kind of come prepared with food, because most people don't leave the venue. They kind of hunker down for the next 4 days. And so that means you have to have food and, of course, drink to continue. And the potluck is one of the ways where you can just kind of come with whatever you bring, like a bowl of spaghetti or a salad or dessert or whatever. And everybody brings something. And there are just tables and tables and tables of food from, different, it could be things that are homemade, things that are bought from the store, and it doesn't even matter, but just like the level of organization and time it took to put all of that together. And that's just naming one event that happens, and that is just at the Gorge. But this is something that happens, I'd like to say, at every concert. There is some type of fan meetup, because that is one of the things that the fans enjoy outside of the music, is just that level of like meeting up with people who love the same thing. And so even if you don't know them, even though they're technically strangers, you've already got something that you can talk about together. And so it kind of takes away that just kind of that nervousness of being around people that, like, what am I going to talk about? I don't know them. Okay, well, I understand that. I feel the same way. I would say you're never going to believe this because I have a podcast, but I am so like naturally introverted. Like me just walking up to someone and talking, I've gotten better at it. Yes, I have, because it's kind of something I'm doing now. But like before this, that just scared the shit out of me, to think I'm going to walk into a room and I don't know anybody, and like, how do I approach that? But so if someone's listening to this and they're like, that sounds terrible, how can you do that? It really is not so bad. It is very easy. And I would say that for the most part, the fans are very, attentive. They just make sure everyone feels welcomed. And a lot of the host of these parties, that is their mission, is if somebody shows up to this party, we are going to make them feel like they are welcome. Like, where are you from? How can we make you more comfortable? It's just it's another great part of this band. And I know that, other bands, let's talk about Taylor Swift for just a minute. Her fan base has a lot of the same similarities as far as like, there are many, many, many podcasts, and there's even a podcast about the fans of Taylor Swift. Did you know that?
Oh, I did not know that.
Oh, yes. And so it was like confirmation that I was doing things right in the podcast world. I was like, hell yeah. Sure. Taylor Swift has, I don't know if she knows about it, but like because there's so many podcasts out there. But there's some similarities. Obviously, other bands do some things that are like this. There are bands that have come before us, like, Fish is a good example, but they're still currently making music. But like the Grateful Dead, their following and their sense of community inside that fan world was a lot of similarities there. And so, I can't say enough good things about the fans behind this band. And I also like to mention, if you've ever had a bad experience at a Dave Matthews Band concert, it's not because of the band, and it's probably not because of their loyal fan base. There are assholes everywhere. Can I get an amen on that? Yes. Amen, amen, amen.
Definitely amen.
It sometimes only takes one person to ruin it for you, but you can always move, right? There's some things that, you just have to remember, okay, this one person is not representing the fan base. There's always people. So let's talk about some of the fun venues, because I know you have traveled. Like, what are some fun venues and some fun memories that you've had along the way?
Probably last year we went to Saratoga Springs for the first time,
Yeah.
because we have the pleasure of staying with a friend that we actually met at the Gorge. So that first time meeting her at the Gorge has developed a best friendship that we see several shows with her. We've gone to Alpine with her as well. I mean, we pick her up at the airport, and we go to Alpine. Alpine's definitely one of my new favorites.
It's
We
great.
went last year for the first time,
And that's in
going back this
Wisconsin.
summer.
If no one knows, that
It
is in
is, yeah,
Elkhorn, Wisconsin. And then
yeah,
Saratoga
Alpine
Springs is in New York. So, yeah.
in New York. Yep.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, sometimes I enjoy an inside show during, if it's the winter, and you can't have the Dave depression. So, the winter tours are always fun. I
Yeah.
saw, Madison Square Garden a couple years ago, on my birthday again. So
Oh,
that
shit.
that
How
was a
was
special
that?
show.
I've
It
never
was
been to Madison
amazing.
Square Garden.
Uh, it was amazing. Night one, we had really good seats, right, like on the side, not on the side, but like one over, and we had
Uh-huh.
just a direct line, great view.
Oh,
The
wow.
second night we were closer to the top, but
Yeah.
we were in the building. I mean,
Right.
it was my first time to New York, so it was just a special, and on my birthday, so
Wow.
and we were just we had a couple other friends that we had met at other various, another guy that we met at Alpine.
Yeah.
So it kind of like we meet people at different venues all over and just meet up again
Right.
at other shows that we're all going to each summer.
Right. Well, I mean, I
So,
just think that this is such an adult way to meet friends, right? Because, when you're
it is.
young, you're
Yeah.
in school, you just, naturally meet people. But when it comes to time to be an adult, often the only people we see are the people that we work with. Sometimes we like them, sometimes we don't, right? It's kind of just, you
Right.
never know. But this is a great way to meet people. And it's no different than I often like to compare what we do to what other people do for like sporting teams. Like I know that there are people that travel to see different, whether it's basketball, football, soccer, whatever your sport is, people do travel to see that. And along the way, they meet other fans of, that sporting team. And it just kind of creates
Right.
this whole
Yeah.
thing. And so it's no different when it comes to music. It's just a different way, but it's a great way to meet people. It's another great way to, like you had said, you've never been to New York. It's a great way to see the country and even the world if you're open to really traveling with the band,
Yeah.
because we know, this band
Yeah.
travels everywhere, all over. And so
Yeah.
it's,
That's on the bucket list too. Yeah.
wow, right? I know, me too. I mean, I've never been out of the country except for the one I went to Mexico this year to see them, well, to see Dave and Tim. But, yeah, I don't think there's any place that I'm like, no, I don't want to go there. I mean, anywhere
Right.
the band is playing, sign me up. And they've never failed
Definitely.
me as far as like taking me to a place where I was like, well, this is kind of shitty. Like it's never
Yeah.
happened. It's just never happened.
Yeah. I'm never coming back here.
It's never happened. I mean, and they've been I mean, who, I use my home state as an example only because here's why. So I live in the state of Arkansas, and you would not believe how many people I tell that to. And it's like the forgotten state for real. They're like, wait, what? Where's that? And I'm like, did you not take geography in school? Like it is, it's right here in the middle of the country. Like it's not even as small as like
Yeah.
Rhode Island. Like, come on, but
Right.
it just, the Dave Matthews Band comes to Arkansas. So, he takes you everywhere. So if you love travel, again, it's just another way to see the country, with purpose in place. And so, I definitely, Madison Square Garden is on my bucket list. I've never heard a bad thing. But then, like you said, you're also in the city, which, there's so many things to do there. What were some things that y'all were able to fit in while you were there?
To be honest, we just kind of walked around and sightseed.
Yeah.
We didn't have an itinerary of things we were going to actually do. It was a
Yeah.
very quick trip. I mean, we flew out on Thursday, shows Friday, Saturday. We flew home Sunday.
Yeah.
And that's my advice for people that want to save their PTO is just Thursday to Sunday
Yeah.
and
It's
get home, just be tired and nap later.
power
But
through.
yes. So we didn't really do much. I mean, we walked around. We walked through one of the nighttime talk shows that's there.
Oh
So
yeah.
we didn't really have a lot of plans. We just kind of just walked around.
I think, in a city like that, you don't really necessarily have to have plans because just being there and seeing, I'm from a small
Right.
town. I don't know, what your town looks like, but like New York City is just, you could just stand there and just look at the buildings and go, oh my God, this is so
Yeah.
much. It is so much. And
It was amazing.
it
Yeah.
never closes down. Like you can always go, you could go out at 2 a.m. and find a
Yep.
restaurant to eat out. That's not the case where I live. And so it was just like it was
No.
like being on a different planet. Obviously
Yeah.
for me, like everyone talks different, like it's like a whole vacation that I'm just like, oh Jesus, this is
Yeah.
amazing. I've only been to New York City one time and it was not to see the Dave Matthews Band, but I hope that the next time I go, that is what it's for.
Yeah.
So we'll see if
Yeah.
they do a fall
We
tour.
went to Times Square, which was fun too.
Yeah, that
Um,
was
that
really
was
cool.
great to see. But
Yeah, yeah. So, as far as the music goes, do you have any kind of music? Like, were you ever in band or anything in school? Like, I mean, I wasn't. I was
um,
never that cool.
my parents put me in piano lessons for the majority of my growing up years,
Yeah.
and then I just ended up quitting. I had a bad experience with a teacher. That's a long story. She made me cry because I didn't practice enough. But
Oh no.
um, so I quit. I mean, I wasn't in band or anything, but I played just in lessons.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I asked that because, I just, I always try to feel someone out. Like, did you play the sax? Like, what did, trying to figure out, like, what was it about this band that, like, entered your ears? And for me, I have a very similar story as you. I was in band for, like, a blink of an eye. I played the clarinet for a very short time in 8th grade. And again, I had a bad experience with my teacher. She just wasn't fostering, like, for me to fall in love with this music. It was more just like,
Right.
rules, rules, rules. You have to do it this way. And I just didn't have a clue what I was doing. And so I dropped out almost immediately, which was probably not the right thing. But for me, whatever, it is what it is. So, but I always had like this love for music. And I think that's why I kind of jumped into band was I wanted to be part of that world. And obviously it didn't work for me to be a musician, but that didn't change the fact that I loved music. And moving in time a little bit, I ended up marrying someone that was in band and loved like being in a jazz band, and he played the bass guitar. And so I think again that just kind of fostered me loving, but also recognizing different kinds of music. And so when I found the Dave Matthews Band, it was like everything that I knew, but also everything that I didn't know could be put together. Because again, traditionally,
Yes.
you don't have, somebody just shredding the guitar. And then also you have a saxophone player. It's like those two things don't typically go together.
Right.
But in this scenario, it did, and it worked so well. And so, I always try to get a background on people when it comes to music. For you, it sounds like it was similar. You just loved the sound. And again, it was something you had not heard before.
Definitely, yeah. Just the like you said, just the mix of instruments and putting them all together on one stage and how they sound. It's just it's incredible. And 25 years later, for myself, I'm just still amazed. I mean, you can hear the same song every summer at each concert played a different way. It's just
Yes.
it's amazing. Like it baffles my mind, and that's why myself and so many people are in love with them.
Yeah, it is it's a chase, right? Because now, that even if you've loved this band for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, what you heard 30 years ago, you may hear something similar, but you're never going to hear it exactly that same way again.
Right.
And
Yeah.
and even so more now that because we throughout time, the band has had to have a few changes when it comes to like members. Obviously, we had a death that occurred, and so there had to be a replacement there. But then, people have dropped out. People have been asked to leave, and so there's been a few changes. And so, of course, that made the music sound a little bit different. But also there was some beauty in that too because they brought a unique sound. So it's just kind of changed. And I think that for me, like when it comes to the '90s, I break it down like '90s, 2000. 2010s, and then we've got our what we're working on now, the 2020s or whatever, however you say all that. And each decade has such a very different sound. But as musicians themselves, they've constantly been growing, constantly been picking up new things, right, as musicians do. And even like their voices, Dave's voice has changed. It has matured so much as he's matured into, you know, from this 20-year-old, like awkward E type kid with a squeaky voice, you know, as he's matured into manhood and fatherhood and all the things, and now he's 56 or something like that, 57 something. You know, his voice sounds really different. So again, that music, because of that, now the music sounds different, right? The songs sound different, and so it's just been change after change after change, but nothing bad. I've never, you know, some people will say, you know, the 2000s were not my favorite. Well, you know, I will never say that. Is there a decade for you that kind of sticks out that you really liked?
That's a good question. I really enjoy where they're at now, with the current members. I mean, I loved Leroy, and the sound was, like you mentioned, was different, and they've evolved. I love Buddy's energy. Um, I mean, I enjoyed the sound of the violin and Boyd, um, many years ago. Um, I think I love them for different reasons each decade,
Oh
and
yeah.
it's really hard for me to say. It's really hard for me to say I love them more now than I did 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But the thing I like to say is everybody has an opinion,
Oh
and
yeah.
and you can like them 20 years ago better than now, but
Hmm.
some people are very strong-minded as far as their opinions. Um,
Oh yeah.
Sometimes I don't like to start that conversation because
I
it's
mean, you know,
um,
it is, you're right. Some people really do have those strong opinions on, and one that we'll throw it out there. People love, and I'm just saying what people are saying. I'm not picking a side. I'll tell you my thoughts on this because I love opinions, and that's what the show is about, is that we can come forward, we could talk about this band, and we can have different thoughts, but that's okay. That's your journey, not my journey. And so
yeah,
just, you know, whatever.
for sure.
But one thing that I hear
Yeah,
often, of course, is Boyd, you know, having him on stage and having that sound of the fiddle or the violin, whatever you want to call it, and how people really miss that and how people really want that sound to come back. Well, okay, let's talk about it, right? You know, why do you feel that way? But, you know, I think it's that was a different sound, and that's it. You know, it did make them sound very different, but I love, well, let me go back. We are never going to have him as part of the band again. That I'm pretty
no,
100% sure on. He's never going to be
that's
back in the
safe.
Dave Matthews Band.
Yeah, that's safe.
However, you know, I think that the band recognizes, and I think this is such a beautiful thing, the band recognizes that the fans, because we have a big voice, that the fans miss that sound. And so if you were listening over the last couple years, there will be some times that Buddy, of course, who he came in 2018-ish, something around in that neighborhood, he has from time to
Yeah,
time brought in that fiddle sound electronically through his keyboard. So they're very aware of the
right.
fact that, okay, I know you guys like that, and we're gonna give it to you in a different way, but like we're gonna try to replicate that sound from time to time. What are you know? Do you have any thoughts? And you don't have to say, you know, anything if you don't want to. You can say, hey, let's skip that. But like, any thoughts on the Boyd Tinsley years with the Dave Matthews Band?
Oh, I thought he was a fantastic um, talent. I loved the band with his sound in it while it um, while it lasted. I think there was some there was a time where it kind of dropped off, and decisions were made, and I'm glad they were. Um, but yeah, I enjoyed the sound. Um,
Yeah,
would it be great to have a fiddle player in the band again, or once in a while? Sure,
sure.
but I think they sound great now as
Yeah,
is.
I
So
agree. I agree. And I say this over and over. This is my favorite time when it comes to the sound, just because I think they're so on right now. Like there is not a missed step when it comes to this band. Like every sound is is perfect. I think that Buddy has just been this addition to the band that is undeniably contagious. Like that smile that he, and just the energy and the way he plays and the way that he's totally in tune with, you know, the other members. That's just, it's such a beautiful thing. And so I think that, you know, time moved on. We had to have some new members, some new sounds, different things. I think he was just such the perfect addition to the band. And so this is my favorite decade for sure. You know, if I have to pick one. But I think talking about Boyd Tinsley definitely opens up the conversation to talk about the upcoming Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction, which I'm just so excited about. You know, I was it something that they had to have to finish off their career? No, you know, and I think that even the band recognized that when they were kind of snubbed, if you will. They were like, you know, hey, that's a great honor, but we don't have to have that in order to feel like, you know, like that we've achieved anything. Like it's not about that. But rightly so, they are being inducted this year, and of course they've released the fact that Boyd will be one of the inductees. Any thoughts or words on that?
I mean, he was part of the band.
I know.
I don't.
That's right.
I don't technically know the rules of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as far as how long you have to be in the band or when. But I mean, he was in the band. It's
right.
He played a significant role in the band. So I mean, I guess I don't have a.
You're.
I mean, he's
no preference.
Like, it is what it is.
It is what it is. Yeah.
He's not going to play with the band, and I heard he was invited. I mean, that might not be true, but if it is, I don't think he'll be there. But
I don't know. Yeah, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens, because I've heard that a lot too. Like, will he even show up? And obviously, like the things that I say on this show, like, you know, I haven't sat down with the band. I haven't heard this from the band. It's all things we collect from, you know, the internet or different sources or whatever. And so whatever happens, we'll all be surprised when that happens. But, you know, that's something that people are talking about when it comes to Boyd Tinsley is, oh, okay. Well, you know, he had such a large presence. He was a large part of the sound that when they started, they were known for, right? Because who throws in a saxophone and a fiddle? And then, you know, I mean, it was such a wild combination, but he was such a big part of what they sounded like when they started, right? And even through several years. And so I think, you know, he should be recognized. Absolutely. I'm on board for that. Do I think he's coming back with the band? Hell no, I don't. I don't think he's got a chance in hell for that to ever happen. And I don't think, no, I don't even think that's a thought in the band's mind. But, you know, I think fair is fair. And, you know, just giving him the mention, at least, of, you know, hey, man, he played a significant part of us starting and us creating a successful band, and so many of the fans loved everything that he did, and you'll hear it if you are in the fan group enough, or if you're in all of the chats and stuff. You are going to see thousands of fans that are begging for him to be part of the band again. You know, we can wish, but you know, I want to be a millionaire. That ain't going to happen. So you know, we can wish all we want, right? That's probably not going to happen. Probably. I don't think it's going to. So, speaking of different people's perspectives, you know, one of the new things that I did, I always say we, but it is just a team of one here. I am Renae, and I'm doing all of the things now. I have started editing my own shows. I'm doing anything that you see when it comes to the Space Between podcast. It is Renae doing it, and so pray for me, right? It's a lot sometimes, but I'm so happy. Fantastic. And honestly, I am so impressed that I've been able to do it, because like this was not something that I was trained to do. So, but it's because there's so many amazing stories when it comes to fan. Thank you. Thank you. It's surprising to most people that I'm doing this. I don't know. But anyways, so part of season 5, which if you're listening to this, welcome to season 5. I've got 100 and something other episodes, which again is just mind-blowing. But so one of the things I started doing for season 5 was a Space Between voicemail. It is part of the Google voicemail system. So if you call it, you're not going to get me. You just get straight to a voicemail. You leave a voicemail for a chance to be played on the air, one of these podcast episodes. And that just gives us some talking points. So if you have any kind of trivia, if you want to do a shout out to the many, many fan groups that there are, whether it's based on a state or whether it's part of the Gorge crew or whatever group that you're part of, because man, there's a lot. You can call the Space Between voicemail, which is simply just 479-259-1630. And so that is what we are going to do right now is we're going to listen to a couple of voicemails, and that'll give us some more things to talk about. So let's see here. What do we want to play first? This is a short but sweet one, but we'll do it.
My favorite date night song from Dave Matthews Band is Break Free. It is so sexy and so good.
So one of the things that I do often on social media is post questions that kind of prompt you to give me an answer. And so that is what I did was I posted a thing that said, what's your favorite date night song when it comes to Dave Matthews Band? So, of course, she said hers was Break Free, which is a song that's been around in the Dave Matthews Band world for a long time, but it had never officially been on an album or a studio album until 2023. And so that was such a sweet surprise to get it. And it did I think with any music of the Dave Matthews Band, there's the studio version, the album version, and then you've got your live versions. And those often sound very, very different. And so, it was still good just to have Break Free be on an album, just so that people could find it easier. If you're a new fan, you may not do a deep dive into those live concerts. You may just be looking at studio recordings. And so finally Break Free has its place. And I'm so happy about that. Definitely one of my favorite. I have a tattoo that's somewhere on my arm that says Break Free. So I'm a big fan of that song. Okay. So let's go into the next voicemail.
So this is Julie. The Dave Matthews Band song that hooked me was 41. A friend gave me 41 on my 41st birthday. Yes, I'm late to the Dave game, but that song saved me in every possible way at a hard time in my life. And those lyrics are my mantra.
I love that. 41. I mean, that's a favorite of yours, right? It's a favorite of everybody's.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. And every 41, like when you see the number 41, it's every time. It's everywhere I go, I see 41. It's everywhere.
It's good, man. It's just so good.
Voicemail. So.
Oh yeah, yeah. Let's see. Okay, here we go. Last one.
What DMB song hooked me? Well, it would have to be a two-part answer. For album-wise, it's definitely The Best of What's Around. Hearing that opening drum riff and the vocals and the chords and the chorus just reeled me in back in the early 90s, and I was hooked ever since that. I would listen to that album nonstop, front to back, top to bottom, all the time, to the point where it drove my parents crazy. And then as a live song, I would have to say Lie in Our Graves. My first concert was in 1998 back at the First Union Center in Philadelphia. And that song was probably like a 15 to 16 minute jam. And it was just amazing. And I remember searching far and wide for a bootleg version of that album from that show from 11/30/98, which I ended up finding about a month or two later in a local record shop. But that version of Lie in Our Graves and really all the extended jams from that year were incredible. They were doing extended jams on Crush and 41, Lie in Our Graves, Say Goodbye, Two Step. Just all those songs are unbeatable. But to answer your question, for the album, it's The Best of What's Around, and live, it's Lie in Our Graves. Thank you so much.
Ooh, let's talk about Lie in Our Graves. That's such a it's kind of it's such a good one. It's so fun. It's one that, in Europe they for 2024 their Europe tour, they really did kind of break it out. It's been one of those songs that people chase because in the past it's not been one that just was played all the time. It's kind of been just kind of more rarer to hear. But it's such a fun song, and I think it has a really great message. It's such a great song. It's so fun, and the way that they play it, amazing. I have some friends that that's just their chaser all the time. They can't get enough of it, and every show I've been at with them, they've never gotten it. But every time I'm at a show without them, I get it. And so, I'm calling them. I'm like, yeah, I'm so sorry. You should have been here. You should have been here. I don't know. So
where are you at?
every time I hear that song now, I think of Mary and Bob Heron. So shout out if y'all are listening to that. They're another strong group of fans that oddly enough live about 10 minutes from me. But I'll tell you how I met them was at a Dave Matthews Band concert, not even in the state of Arkansas. So it's funny how you meet people and then you're like, oh my God, we live in the same city,
definitely.
but I found you through this band. And so, automatically we've got like that common thing that we can talk about, and they've just been so much fun. I'm so glad I met them. So hey, are you open to doing some Dave Matthews Band trivia?
Absolutely. I'm probably not very good, just in general, at trivia, not very good. But I will give it a try. Give
it your best. I mean, I told you this before we started recording, but one of the things about trivia, especially when it comes, well, just any trivia, is if you don't know the answer, then that opens you up to learning something new about the band, which I think if you're, if you're, I know that you are, but if you're listening to this, you want to know more about this band. And so this is just, I feel like it's a win-win for everybody. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I got 6 questions for you. So let's get right into it. Okay. Which one's first? Okay. Which one of these venues was not an early venue for DMB gigs? So we're thinking back early years, and I know, neither you or I were listening to the Dave Matthews Band when it came out in 91, just age-wise. We were not there yet. I was 11 when the band came out. Right. I don't know how old you were in 91, but young. You were young.
I was 7, yeah.
So, we just didn't find the band in 91, We just time was not on our side when it came to that. So I'm gonna list off 4 different venues that they have played at, but which one was not an early venue that they played at? Okay, so we have Flood Zone, we have Trax, we have Miller's, and we have Charlotte's. Which one do you think is not an early venue for Dave Matthews Band?
Charlotte's rings a bell. I've not heard that one.
Well, guess what? You're right. Charlotte's is not one that was an early venue for the Dave Matthews Band. Of course, Flood Zone, Trax is a very...
The other 3, so...
Oh, yeah. I mean, when you're getting into, like, the history of the band, of course, right when they started doing some live shows, Flood Zone, Trax, I mean, those are some of the concerts that you'll hear about from old, I don't want to say older fans, but like more seasoned fans, that they'll throw that out there fairly often and either say, hey, I was there, or have you heard the music from? And I really encourage you, if you haven't listened to a lot of their music from the early 90s, I think that you'll get a whole different appreciation for for all of it, their sound, the members, their growth. If you listen to some early 90s recordings and then you listen to the progression of the band, I mean, they've come a long way. They have come such a long way. Not that they were bad. They weren't bad then. Obviously, if they were bad, they wouldn't have even made it. But they really have just become more of a seasoned professional, right? Like, I think that just comes with time in any profession. Even if you started out, I don't care, as an accountant. Well, if you put 20 years into that, you're going to be better typically than someone that just kind of walks in the door straight out of school or whatever. And so, I think that that's just normal. But I definitely, if you haven't really listened into those concerts, listen into them. It's so easy now, right? We live in a time where you can just go to YouTube or you can just get on it and do that. And so how lucky are the fans now? So we're going to go back again early to some early years of the Dave Matthews Band. So do you remember who the original keyboardist was who left the band in 92? And that was just a year after they started. But do you remember who the original keyboardist was for the Dave Matthews Band?
I do not.
That's okay. His name was Peter Greiser, I think is how you say it. But he was the original keyboardist for the Dave Matthews Band. Of course, he stayed just a year. And then we introduce, do you know the second person?
Was it Butch?
Yeah.
I don't know if he was second or not.
Yeah, okay. I think he was second. Yeah. Butch Taylor, and he stayed with the band for a very long time. Just amazing. And I don't know the reasons why. We'll never know I may never know the reasons why. Maybe somebody does. And if you do, call my voicemail. Again, I would love to know any kind of historical facts when it comes to this band, just so I can speak better about them. But he left the band, but he did not leave the music industry. I just recently recorded an episode that's already been released, but it was with a couple of guys, Terrence and Sean, who live in Virginia, and they have they have their own band, and they kind of led me through a story where they met with Butch Taylor. So Butch is still very much in the music industry, but he's doing more things like mentoring, helping people kind of home in on their craft. And so he's just doing things a little bit differently, but he was a big part of the Dave Matthews Band. And I hope that Peter, if he can, but definitely Butch, since Boyd is going to be part or has been asked to be part of the induction ceremony, it begs the question, has Butch been asked, right? Because he, again, was such a big part of their sound and who they were and really paid his time in with the band. And so I'm just so excited to see how that pans out. Okay, so let's see. Let me open up my book. Have I ever shown you my book of trivia? I have like a real binder with typed questions in it.
Did you put it together yourself?
Oh yeah, because
that's awesome.
I'm that level of nerd that's like, what do I do with my extra time? I'm gonna type up.
Yeah, that's awesome. I didn't know if there was like one out there in circulation.
No,
but that's awesome.
No, but if you have trivia questions that I'm sure people do as time goes on, send some to me. I would love to add it, and if you send them to me, of course, I'll give you a shout out on the podcast. Do you know what song on Big Whiskey album that Leroy is not in?
Oh, jeez, is this multiple choice?
It can be.
I excel much better at multiple choice.
Let's see.
Ooh, that means without the multiple choice.
That means I gotta make up some stuff. Let me pull this album off my wall here so I can tell you. Okay, so which song on this album, Big Whiskey, which is one of just such a great album, which song did Leroy not play in? Okay, so we've got Lying in the Hands of God, Why I Am, Squirm, or Shake Me Like a Monkey. Which one of those songs did he not play in? And it's okay to guess, because I would not have known this either.
At this point, it's just a guess. I'm going to say Why I Am.
Well, it is actually Squirm. He did not play on that song. Okay. So, when we get through, you just have to pop it in or press play, whatever you do, and listen to it. He was not in that song, which is just some information to hold on to later. And when you're at a party, you can pull out that trivia and be like, guess which song,
sure.
Hey, use it.
The next tailgate.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, sure. Let's do one more. Let me find the perfect one for you. No, I'm going to give you an easy one, easier one. Okay, in what year? In what year was The Warehouse? Which, if you're listening to this and you're like, what is The Warehouse? Well, it's a couple of things. Number one, it's a song that the band plays, or, and then it is also the name of the fan association, like the fan group, like Taylor Swift, again, has an official fan group. So the Dave Matthews Band, of course, has their official fan group. It's called The Warehouse. Do you remember what year that started?
Oh. I'm going to go. I don't. But,
I'll give you a hint.
Okay.
I'll give you a hint. So it actually officially started the year after this, but it was formed and information was given out in the same year that you went to your first concert.
Oh, geez, that's like giving it away. 1998, which
1998.
at first I was gonna guess 96, but that might be too early from their inception. So 98 makes more sense.
1998, and so it was 1999 when people were really starting to join that, and it's been so fun to to talk to people that have been part of that fan group since then. And because it has been so long now, the Warehouse, I guess, keeps up with these people who have stayed active members of the Warehouse from then to now, and mails them things from time to time, kind of a nod, like thank you for supporting the band. And if you're not familiar with the Warehouse, not only is it as a fan group where there are things like chat rooms where you can, or chat, whatever you call them now, I don't know, but chat, ways to talk to different fans about anything that you want to talk about when it comes to the Dave Matthews Band. You can buy merch there now through dmb.com or davematthewsband.com. Because it's all now integrated. They've done some changes throughout the years, of course. But why most people join is it gives you the ability, or loosely, the ability to get tickets at a deeper discount than you're going to buy through Ticketmaster or a secondhand or a second like StubHub or things like that. But it's kind of based on a lottery system. So, you have to be a member. You pay that $30 a year, which again is a super, I've spent $30 at Taco Bell. We can pay $30 to be part of this fan group. Right. And so it gives you the ability to say, hey, yeah, I'd like to be at Madison Square Garden in November. Put me down for tickets. And they basically, however they do it, your name goes in a hopper, whatever. If they pull it out, then you get those tickets at a discounted price. So, it's just, it's kind of like kind of a lottery system when it comes to tickets. But again, it's just saving money. Even paying that $30, you're really saving money if you get picked for tickets. And sometimes, that's one of those things people love to talk about is the ticket processing system. But that's just, it's a hard thing. I don't care which way you do it. There's always going to be people that are upset about the process because they didn't get what they wanted. And that's just life, right? Like, we're not all going to get what we wanted. I don't always get what I want. You, I'm sure, don't always get what you wanted. But what I can say is if you tap into the community, the fan community, I have never not found tickets. They're available for just about any show.
They're everywhere.
Yeah.
They're everywhere.
Yeah. So, you don't have to be. And one of the really sweet things, and it's kind of one of those unspoken rules, but people do a good job of doing that, is if you do get that $99 ticket to, a concert, if something happens and you can't go, the rules are you resell it for what you paid for it. So we're not trying to make money on those tickets. Whereas, if you buy tickets through StubHub or something, there is an incredible markup on those tickets, especially if it is a highly sought after ticket. So it's just, some great ways, some ticket tips if you guys are looking into getting into the ticket game as far as the Dave Matthews Band, saving some money. I think that's important across the board. How can we do this how can we do the most for the least amount of money? That's always the game that I'm playing. I'm sure a lot of people are playing that same game too. And there really are some great ways to save money, but it really boils down to, or at least I think it boils down to, really getting connected into this community of other fans, because so far fans take care of fans, and it's always proved to me to be a really good thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I cannot thank you enough, Jake. I feel like we've chased each other a little bit. Like I know I'm hard to track down, and that is just life. But I cannot thank you enough for just being willing to share your journey. And I know that there's no way that we can get through anyone's journey, especially because we're talking about so much time. I mean, yeah, you have not been there since 1991, but 1998 is still a very long time ago. If you were to ask any teenager about 1998, they're going to be like, "You're old." It was a long time ago. It was a long time ago. So, you have a long history. And so I definitely invite you to come back after the 2024 tour. That gives us some more things to talk about, because we know that, of course, the band is about to open up for their U.S. tour in Tampa, Florida. And so we will have a whole another summer full of music, full of things that, are going to blow our minds, surprises. This band never ceases to amaze me, from just their music in general, but then also, guests that they bring out to play a song with them. And so there's always things to talk about. So I definitely invite you to come back for another episode if you're willing.
Absolutely. Love your energy and keep up the good work. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much. But in the meantime, guys, again, if you're listening to this on your favorite podcast app, just know that you can also watch this on YouTube. It's just simply under the Space Between Podcasts. So definitely look at that and do all of the things that your 13-year-old knows to do when you go to YouTube. You've got to like it. You got to give it a thumbs up. You got to subscribe to that channel, because, of course, that just gives us more love and we know who's watching that. And do the same thing for your podcast app. You know that you can subscribe. That way, every time I put out an episode, it's going to let you know, hey, there's a new episode of the Space Between Podcasts. So for all of you that are listening, thank you for supporting this. This has just been like a crazy dream that I didn't even know was what was going to happen. And so it's been so much fun for me, but also it's been confirmation. And I was kind of telling Jake that earlier, that like I'm not the only obsessed fan when it comes to this music. And so it's been a lot of fun to talk with other people about something that I'm passionate about, and to find out that, again, I'm not the only one. So Jake, thank you so much. Guys, stay tuned. Look on all the socials. Of course, the Space Between Podcast is on every social: Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all of those. So be sure to follow us. We're about to start having a whole lot of fun, because of course the Space Between Podcast is on the road. I'd like to say with the band, but it's not with the band. We're just, we're kind of behind them. We're behind them. We're watching that and documenting the fan story of that, because again, that's my favorite part, is just the fans behind the band. And so until the next time, guys, peace, love, and Dave Matthews Band. Thank you so much, Jake.
Yeah, see you on the road.